Welcome to Inside the Business. I'm Nancy Kay Coy, and I am really glad to have you join us today. This is where we slow conversations down and we talk honestly about business leadership and the decisions that shape how we live and how we lead. Today, I'm joined by Linda Kane of Dental Office Rescue. Linda, thank you for being here today.
Oh, Nancy, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you today.
So we're going to begin with a quick discussion about what Linda is seeing inside dental practices right now. Burnout, communication breakdowns, leadership pressure, and what many doctors and teams are quietly carrying behind the scenes. But later in this episode, we're going to talk about Linda's personal story. And it is a story of heartbreak. It's earth-shattering and incredibly powerful, but it's really a story about grit, resilience, purpose, and really finishing strong. So we're also going to talk about a book that Linda is writing and why the message matters so deeply with her. So Linda, for those who may not know you yet, tell us a little bit about Dental Office Rescue and the work that you do.
Oh, thank you, Nancy, for having me here. I'm really excited to be here. So Dental Office Rescue came to light after I had worked for many years in a dental office, and I saw the need where a lot of problems were happening around insurance, and insurance was not being handled properly. So I created a billing company, and I worked that billing company for a few years and grew that and sold it. And then when I exited that building company, I decided I really wanted to get back into just consulting and training. So I'm really on a mission right now to save doctors' lives. Dental Office Rescue is literally the name that came from a client that I worked with. I had a doctor in Colorado that I worked with, and she said, if there was a reality TV show like Restaurant Impossible kind of thing, if there was a TV show called Dental Office Rescue, Linda would be the host. And I remember I called her and I said, can I use that name? Because it just really struck with me. So I have this business called Dental Office Rescue, and really my whole goal, my movement, is to save the lives of doctors and to create systems in offices that utilize the human and keep the human protected in our environment.
Fantastic. What a mission, what a goal. And you're right. It is a movement. So what pulled you into helping dental practices really in the first place?
Well, I started in dentistry many, many years ago, 29 years ago. My kids were really tiny. I had been working nights and had a job I worked nights. It was crazy. And my kids were in school full time. And so I thought, I just need to find a job that I can do during the day. And a friend of mine told me about this dental office that she worked in, and they needed another person. It was just getting busy enough. They needed another person. So I interviewed and I got the job, and I'll never forget that doctor sat me down day one and said, Linda, you're going to be in charge of sending out the statements, and you're going to be in charge of patient collections. And I was like, okay, I don't even know. So he gave me a little map of the teeth and taught me the teeth numbers. And then he told me his grading system. And I would get a D if my collections were at 97% of his production at 100%. I would get a C if I was at 97%, 96, 97. I would get a B if I was at 98. I would get an A if I was at 99%, and an A plus if I was at 100%. So that was my really hard lesson on day one, how to manage your collections ratio in compared to their production. Yes.
Oh my gosh. You're probably going, I thought the night job was done. Oh my gosh. It's like, what I just said to you, doctors aren't academia or anything, are they? What? So when you walk into a struggling office, what do you really notice first?
Oh my gosh, the first thing I see when I walk into an office is I feel their energy. The minute I open the door and I see the look on their face or what's laying on their desk, if they've got insurance sitting on the front desk, I feel the energy the moment I walk in the door. And I can tell it's, a lot of people that are not dental, they sense the smell when they walk into a dental office. They sense that clinical smell, that weird smell that dental offices have. Yeah. But I'm so used to that smell. I've been a part of it for so many years that when I walk in, I feel the energy right away.
Yeah, I completely understand that because of course, I work on the different side of healthcare to a certain degree, but I know exactly what you're talking about, and you can you can feel it, and it's either really good and warm and welcoming, or it's usually you got some work to do to kind of change the environment before you almost can start. So what are doctors and teams right now carrying emotionally that people may not realize?
Oh, I think, the doctors are experiencing something completely different than the team. The doctors are worried about the hygienist, and are they really carrying their weight? Because honestly, their adjusted fees in relationship to the cost of hiring a hygienist these days are sometimes under. They're not even meeting, right? So they worry about the cost and the business side of the hygiene department of their office. They worry about the supply cost. They worry about getting sued. They worry about the cost of everything. They're worried about the cost of everything. They're worried about their team. They're worried about the drama in the office. They have a lot of concerns that are very different than the team. The team has concerns like, nobody sees me. Nobody realizes how much I have to do. Nobody gets what I have to do. I'll tell you, if they had to sit down and do what I do, they would never survive. You know what I mean? Like, so the team feels something completely different than the doctor.
So what you're talking about is disconnection.
Yes. Oh, very much so.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get that, because when you're a provider, you're just exactly like you said, you're a business owner, you're doing so many different functions, but quite frankly, so is your office team. And so where do you see most commonly like communication breakdowns?
Most often it's going to be in your leadership, right? The parents of the office. I always think of it kind of like the parents of the office, the leader of the administrative team, and the doctor, who is the automatic leader just because they're the doctor, right? And I think that's the one component that oftentimes is missing, is the fact that the owner of the practice, in most states, that is the doctor that's practicing in the practice, is the leader of the practice. And they have to be in cohesion with the administrative leader, whether that's a practice manager, development director, office manager, whatever they're called. The leader of the office has to be in connection with the owner doctor, and they have to be firing on all cylinders together. They have to know that they each have each other's backs and that they're unified on their message to the team. And that component is the number one component that is missing in dental offices as far as the relationship and the management of the practice.
Yeah, I see it too. It's like, it's just this, it's a disconnection. And do you think a lot of times, Linda, it's not because they necessarily want to be disconnected, but it's because they don't really know what to do to connect the pieces?
Yep. They don't know how they're supposed to connect. They don't know. They just don't understand. And the thing is there's 25 essential systems in an administrative office of a dental office, right? And so there's a lot going on for the front. But if a leader in the administrative team is an effective leader, they're going to be talking to that doctor and making sure that they are in agreement about the marketing plan, that they're in agreement about the team and how the team is set up, and that they understand how the team is set up and what their functions are going to be. And then that leader has to give good job responsibilities. Who doesn't want to have a clearly described set of responsibilities, right? What's missing most office in dental offices is they don't even know what they're supposed to do, but they're going to get in trouble if they don't do something, right? And it's like, give them a clearly defined set of responsibilities so that they know what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, and I think too, though, with that, because you're absolutely right. I think most people want to do a good job, but if they don't have a path, if they don't have some key performance indicators, KPIs, of what is good from that doctor's perspective, that becomes really problematic. And sometimes what I have encountered is I think a lot of times the doctors don't even know what those KPIs should be. So as you're working with providers and you're talking about really saving them, they're building a business. And you're investing in your staff, you're investing in systems, you're investing in operations, procurement, all these different things. I really think that, and I really would love your thoughts on this, is how do you sort of, as you're working with these practices, how do you sort of blend those things, or those dynamics, so that you can feel, I guess, as the office manager, as you're approaching this provider, how am I doing a good job? Am I
Yeah.
doing what you want me to do?
Hmm.
Because I have just found, and I really would love you to kind of really dig into this, because when I hear the offices and such that I work with, when the team is found doing the right thing, or when they want to do more. Is that right thinking, or where's your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, that's a really big one to unpack. So here's what I would say. When I start with an office, I dig in deep right when I start. Like the whole first month is really figuring out what the deal is, and then learning how to deal with the deal, if that makes sense.
Right.
So what I do is I give them a pretty thorough questionnaire for the team and for the doctor and for the manager. They all have to fill out their own questionnaire, and it's very individual. It comes to me. Nobody sees it. It's not a printed thing. It's a Google Doc that they fill out and they send it to me. Then I'm really able to get down and in the deep with how the team feels and what's going on and what the leadership is like, and if they trust their doctor or not, if they trust their manager or not. I get into the deep of everything with everyone, so I get their real story. Then I have them take like a self-assessment, where they just randomly they take this self-assessment to kind of co-diagnose with me. What do they think the status of their office is? Where are they on these key functions? And then we put all that together, and I talk very transparently about that with them and what my findings were. And then we come together on what we believe is our best plan of action for them. And of course, the biggest plan is going to be, how are they going to get the biggest return, right? First.
Of course.
But really, it's about getting that team connected and working together. And so sometimes it's a proper alignment of the team. Is somebody in a position where they're naturally going to thrive? Is somebody in a position where they're just sinking because it doesn't really fit their plan? So I do like a personality test with them a little bit,
I love
to
that.
get to figure out why does the doctor act that way? Well, this is the reason the doctor acts that way, because of this strength that he or she has, right? And so we kind of get everyone firing together. I'm very much a relationships first person, to gain that trust of the team, because I've been there. I don't ask them to do anything that I can't do myself, right? Like I could sit down at their system and do everything I'm asking them to do.
Mhm.
So I think that's a big part of it, is getting the understanding of what's going on, pulling their data, all their numbers, to see where their systems are breaking down, where their numbers are lagging. Most dentists feel like, geez, do I have to do 10 more crowns a month just to make ends meet? And they don't realize what's in the underbelly of their practice. And if they would just start working their systems, they could unearth all that stuff that's in the underbelly of their practice. And there's smart systems to use out there that don't make that hard work for the team, right?
Yeah.
So then it's a matter of unrolling the systems and training on the systems and implementing those systems. And that's kind of how we attack it.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. You've got to have policies, you've got to have process, you've got to have systems, or people just kind of run amok and you
They
lose
do.
control.
Well, and
Well,
I think one
Go
of
ahead.
the things one of the things that I love to do is to bring them back together as a team. Everything got loud and everything got noisy and everything got hard, and we broke a little bit of trust, and we just kind of took each other for granted, and we're in a spot now. And so we've got to repair that spot. So some of the things that I do with them are some really fun reconnecting games that we play, things that we do just to get them locked and loaded and firing together again, and understanding that they need each other,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
if one of them's gone, it plays a toll on everyone else, that everyone's really needed. And so we just kind of rally back around that. And really it's just a matter of support and teaching the leader to actually lead, giving that leader the skills that they need to actually lead is a big part of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right in that. So I couldn't agree more. Everybody wants to, I think most people want to do a good job, and they just need what does good look like to one person versus good looks like to somebody else is
Yeah.
completely different. So what
Mhm.
happens when stress and burnout really go unaddressed for too long then?
Well, you don't do these things and somebody feels overwhelmed or feels unheard. That's where the mass amount of turnover is happening in dentistry. People
Gotcha.
just you can only feel underappreciated and undervalued and overworked. And if you're not heard to get some relief, to get some help, to get a better process in place, something, um, it's going to lead to a lot of bigger problems, right? It's going to lead to audits as we get into more AI involvement. Doctors are going to be audited. They think they're in their little neck of the woods somewhere, and they're going to be audited. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And
Yeah.
so it really is a big deal. And so I think that overwhelm sets in, that lack of clarity, that lack of help, that lack of being seen is the biggest way that I can describe it. And then they leave, and then you're right back where you started again, and you've got to hire another person. And that does sour the attitude of the leaders. It kind of makes them stressed out, and it makes them not the best leaders when you have to replace them again. And then you don't go through the correct onboarding process to support them in their new employee that comes in. And it's just kind of like an insanity cycle. I hate to say that, but that's what it is.
It is, and it's not real great for branding either.
Mm-mm.
There's so much that goes into it, and you nailed it. I cannot agree with you more about these audits. I mean, I know on my side where this is coming, and
Mhm.
most providers don't think that these audits are happening. Yes, they
Oh,
are.
they
Fines
are.
are enormous. I mean, just enormous. I mean, putting people out, literally doctors out of businesses, losing licenses. The regulators like flag on the play. There's just been too much
Hmm.
just running amok kind of stuff. So
Well, Nancy, you see how the landscape of dentistry has changed over the years we've worked in
yes,
dentistry.
yes,
And I would
100%.
say in the last 12 months, it's leapt. It's like leaped with a big change, right?
Absolutely.
It
Right. Yeah.
started with 2026 getting here and the 60 changes in the CDT code manual, 60 changes with 31 brand new codes. I mean, that's enormous. And I still shudder to think that many doctors haven't even gotten their new code book. Like, why? They don't think they need to. And I just think things are changing so rapidly. And because, you just think if you're sitting in your dental office right now and you just think about geographically where you're located, how many more dentists you can name within a radius of 1 mile, 2 miles. There's several dentists just right there in radius of you. And so they can't process that many claims and not look at things, or process that many financial transactions and not look at something. It's
Yeah,
going to be.
and that's why I think it's so important. Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you in certain areas and get those processes and procedures in place. They may seem expensive, but in the long run, you're
Oops,
protecting the business.
oops.
And let's be real, it is a business, and you have to do the right things right. And the days of just being flippant, not an option anymore. It's just not an
Yeah.
option anymore. So let's transition real quickly to what a healthy office culture actually looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, and this lends us right into what we're going into. Doctors use the logic of care and concern for a patient on their tooth, right? If we don't do this treatment, this is what I'm concerned about. This is what I worry may happen. This is the pain you may feel, right? This is the way we describe treatment to patients to get the yes for treatment. And it's the same thing with their practice and the health of their practice. I'm concerned for them and I'm worried about them, and I want to put the systems in place so that they don't feel these audits and they don't feel these problems. It's the very same emotional story, right? But for a practice to run well, it's got to take that leadership functioning together. The leadership has to be functioning together. I will tell you, can I give you a story?
Of course, yeah, please.
Okay, so I was called by a owner of a large group in Oregon and Washington to come up and work in their corporate, not corporate offices. They had two of their southernmost offices in Oregon that were performing really poorly. And they wanted to know if I could come and I could help them improve their system using my private practice principles, like they were some kind of secret sauce, right? And I went in, and what I noticed was that there was a managing doctor who was a really lovely lady, but she was so not connected to her team and not connected to her manager. And her manager took a job moving to another one of the offices. And so I was the new manager to come in and partner with her. The team was so unhappy that they used these Press-Ganey scores for your overall satisfaction scores in different categories about a patient's experience in the office. And everything was based on those Press-Ganey scores. And so I decided what I was going to do was kind of do what I would do if I was a consultant. And I just went in, and I couldn't do the questionnaires, but I could individually meet with everyone. Mm-hmm. So I did my first few days there. I individually met with everyone. They got to feel of my spirit, right? And see what I stood for. And they got to share with me. And you know, after I had met with everyone individually, I made it a practice of every day when I got there, because they worked 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and everyone had different shifts to cover the whole thing because it was 6 days a week. Sure. So I came in about 8 o'clock in the morning and I left about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I would come in at 8 o'clock, and oftentimes I would bring treats, but I would walk in. I would walk in with my purse, and I'd walk around before I put my purse down, and I would say hello to every single member of the team. And there were like 28 of them. And I'd go around and I'd say hello to everyone, and I'd ask them if there's anything I could do to help or support them today. Is there anything going on in the last hour and a half since I got here, you know, from before I got here, that we need to talk about? And they were all really cool about that. And they'd say, yeah, when I get done with this patient, I'll come talk to you. You know, I made sure everyone knew that if they came in to talk to me, that I would hear what they had to say, but they had to provide a solution option, right? Yeah. Don't just come dump a problem on me. Yeah, provide a solution option. But we changed our meetings. We created, because I said I would, cards, you know what I mean? And we started to just embody this caring for one another feeling. We did realign a couple of people and put them in different positions. We hired a sterilization tech that could just take the pressure off of all of these tons of rooms and these assistants running in and out, to just have one person manning the shop right there. But, you know, just investing in the people and employing servant leadership, I was able to really get a connection with the whole team. I was able to get the systems locked and loaded that we needed to get the systems locked and loaded. We gamified the Press-Ganey scores, and we put a competition out there around the teams, and whoever got the highest score got a pizza party, you know, and they were all excited. And it was neat. And in that year, we brought those 2 southernmost offices to the top third of the pack. And it was just because we locked and loaded together. And so you can do anything together. A team that believes that you're there with them will outperform you any day of the week. Absolutely. They'll do anything for you.
Yeah, fantastic. What a great story. And so, and again, I think what you're saying is people just want to be part of something. They don't want to feel disconnected. They want to feel They want to feel unified. It was funny, just kind of alluding to this. I can't help myself. I have to go on. I go on these Facebook, you know, because I just like to see what's going on in the industry. And it took everything I had to not jump through the internet. And this doctor was basically saying that the patients are only there for them, or him. They don't care about the patient. They don't care about his staff. On and on. I'm like, buddy, you got this so wrong. Where did you learn this? This is about unification. And when patients trust converts. And when you have a disconnection, when you think you are holier than thou and you're the only one that makes a difference in the practice, I have news for you. Pride goes before a fall. It is only a matter of time before. And this particular provider was wondering why he had so much issue with churn. I'm like, really? Like, I just wanted to say to him, treat people like you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Find people in the act of doing right and unify your team. And that's exactly what you're saying, Linda. It's just unification is so powerful. And patience, you talked in the very beginning about feeling, about that energy. Man, when you guys got to the top 2, the energy completely, the dynamics completely changed.
totally different. The patients were laughing when they came in, and they were talking, and they were engaging with the front office, and they didn't feel like cows being herded through. They literally, they were just the improved conversations. They just were, it was so much better. It was just such a happier place to be. And if I was having a hard day, if somebody came down on me for something, the whole team had my back. Right? They'd all come in, Linda, are you okay? And is there anything I could do to help or support you? It was really just a really great environment. And that's what you want.
100%, because most people get into healthcare. I know when I started my career 36 years ago, I got into healthcare because I care about people. And I think I think a lot of times we've lost that in that exactly what you said and what's really funny, interestingly enough, the offices, have you seen this? The offices that have that kind of dynamic, patients say yes to the care a lot faster, a lot easier, because they feel much more comfortable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When there's turnover all the time at the front desk, and there's that energy feel that you feel constantly, if it's a different assistant who's with them from their last appointment to their next appointment, if it's a different hygienist that's with them, they question all of that, right? They question all of that. And they feel, let me just talk about the lobby, right? The lobby, it should not be full of every kind of advertisement and every kind of clinical service that you offer. It should be calm. They should feel 3 C's in your waiting area. It should be calm, control, and comfort, right? Calm, control, and comfort. That's the one room where the patient's in charge. Let's just give them that room, right? Give them that room to be in charge. Because once they walk through that door, they're no longer, they're all of a sudden in that discomfort, right? They're worried, they're concerned, something's going to happen. What are they going to find, right?
Yeah. I say this all the time. You're going to stick a needle in my mouth, possibly, and you're going to cut me, and you're going to make me bleed. I mean, let's break it down to the simplest facts. That's what patients are thinking, right? And they're already, like you said, I'd rather, you have to take care of your oral health. It is absolutely paramount. We all know that. But if I could be at a dental office, or I could be at Macy's, and I'm not even a big shopper, I do shopping online. I don't have time to shop.
Yeah.
I have things to do. But do you know, right? Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that?
I completely agree with that. I feel like if they feel like they're in good hands, if there's a good feeling when you walk in the office, the patients are going to be fine. They're going to be fine. And they're going to, not only are they going to say yes to treatment, they're going to give you a review, because you want every patient to walk out thinking, not, I think we're so bogged up with wow dental treatment that I look at it completely differently. I want a patient to leave thinking, I did not expect that. Like, that was way better than I expected. Exactly. I did not expect that experience at the dentist. I want to leave. I'm very trained in dentistry. And when I moved to a new area, which I just moved, when I moved to a new area and I'm getting a dentist off the street that I don't know, because I don't know any dentists in Arizona, you better bet I'm judging every dang thing when I sit down in that lobby. Are they connected? Do they have my information? Are they prepared for me? And I'm very knowledgeable in dentistry. And I'm judging left and right when I walk into those offices.
Of course you are. And the one thing I think too, and we're going to move on here because we're going to get to your story in just a minute, but docs, pay that person an extra $2 an hour for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? I mean,
well, I think that comes with a caveat, because they're struggling. The biggest struggle they have is with their hygiene department. Because with the way the insurance fees are going and the relationships they're in, I mean, it's a big thing, right? You need to have your fee structure set up properly. You need to be using the highest fee schedules you can. And that's a whole nother podcast, a whole nother episode. But have your fee schedule so that you're happy with them. But the problem that they're experiencing is that they're paying so much for their hygienists that the hygienists really have to be invested in being a business within the business, right? Yeah. They have to be running their hygiene department, not routine. They need to be running their hygiene department with, I'm a clinician And I need to really be talking about the treatment because I'm concerned about my patient, and making sure that they're offering the treatment that should be offered, and that they're running themselves so that they're a business within the business. Because right now what's happening in the dentistry world is hygienists are making a lot, and they should because they're very valuable. But with fees the way they are, they're losing their shorts on the hygiene department. So if the hygiene department could pick itself up and that's not a concern for the doctor, yes, absolutely. They need to be thinking about how can they take care of their administrative team and see them for the work that they do. Yeah. And pay them extra. Yeah.
Sure. Having hired multiple, hundreds of people over my career. And it's like, an extra $1, $2 makes a huge difference. And I get that. But that person in the front, where I think a lot of times we try to save money and not pay, a lot of these people are paid minimum wage. And I'm like, that's the person who's walking in the door, who's greeting your patient, you want somebody there that's competent, that can represent your brand appropriately.
Yeah. Can I say it this way? You want somebody that's going to act like an owner of the practice. You want them to have an owner mentality. You want them to be invested in your business. And how can they do that when they can't even meet their needs of their family?
That's 100%.
They can't pay their bills. How can they advocate for you and feel good about advocating for you and your practice and your dream when they can't even make it on their own? So it is really important to pay them appropriately for them to have an ownership mentality.
Absolutely.
Again,
Unity.
If you're taking care of your team, you're going to have a great team.
Yeah. So what is one thing every dental team can do immediately to improve their communication and trust?
Have a great morning huddle. Talk in the morning together. It's the first thing that you guys can do. Or just be brave. I'm a big advocate for 20 seconds of courage, right? If you feel like you're in an office that maybe isn't working the best, you don't have the best communication, have that 20 seconds of courage to go talk to your doctor or talk to your manager and say, I really care about this practice. How could we make this better? What could we do better?
That's great.
It's a huge thing.
Step out and step up. So then I want to transition to your story for a moment, because when you shared it with me, honestly, it stopped me in my tracks. Would you be comfortable sharing what happened to you on that very tragic day involving the doctor and how it changed you personally and professionally?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a story that's hard for me to share, but it's such an important story to share because it's happening in our industry. We're the number 2 industry for this. So it's something that needs to be talked about. So when I was in my career to the point that I had my billing company, I never really felt like I could live on just I called that the variety side of my life, the part I did on my own versus the part I was employed by a company. So I was doing what was really unbelievable. I was working full-time at a dental office while I owned my billing company, and I would consult on the side with offices that had employed our billing services, and I would help on the afternoons, and then one day a week we weren't open, I would help in their offices to educate their teams. And at the same time, all of that was happening. 2 different doctors that were really good friends of mine asked me if I would help them with their startup practices. So one in a beautiful touristy town in Idaho up in the mountains, and one in a rural community. And so I was helping them get their systems in place. When you get a brand new software, it's empty. You have to put all your pharmacies in it. You have to put all your prescriptions in it. You have to do all of that. And they both used Open Dental, which I was thrilled about. So I was able to kind of do it all at the same time, one day with them and one day with them, or evenings with them. The doctor who was in the rural community, he met me through our network of friends. The other doctor I knew very well, and I'd worked with him for years and years. But this doctor who met me through our network of friends, he just was such a cool guy, and I just connected to him really quickly. And he begged me, Linda, I'll pay you more than you're making at that other dental offices to come work with me in my new startup. And I thought, oh, geez, he made me a great offer. And so it was awesome. I left and I came and I helped them shorts and a t-shirt all summer long while construction was happening and we were getting everything set up in their system. I said, do I get carte blanche? Can I put the systems in place that I need to? And he said, yes, absolutely. I trust you. So we got everything set up, what I thought would be perfect for a brand new dental office. And it was beautiful. It was wonderful. And it was such a great office. But then he made the poorest choice in an associate doctor. And that associate doctor was really full of himself and young grad, really a good dentist, but super full of himself. And he rubbed people the wrong way in that small town. He really did. And we were starting to get a bad reputation. And finally, that owner doctor had to make a decision to let that doctor go. So he came in and he was practicing as the dentist, came out of retirement and was practicing as the dentist while we were trying to find another dentist. And that didn't bode well in a lot of ways. And wow. And it got hard. It got really, really hard. And he took his own life. And when he did, it was on a Sunday. It was a Sunday night. And I got a call from his daughter who said, hey, Dad's not coming into the office tomorrow. You'll have to move his patients. And I said, okay, when's he coming back? I'll move him to wherever he's coming back. She goes, I don't really know yet. And I was like, okay. So then it really caught me off guard because she's never done anything like that. And I went into the office on that Monday and I was kind of panicking because I thought, I don't know where to move these patients to. Like, just cancel them, but I don't know where to move them to. And one of the doctor's very, very good friends, who's also a dentist, called me and said, Linda, I need to talk to you. And I said, yeah, what's going on? And he said, well, doctor took his own life last night. And I dropped the phone. And I just cried. I was like, what do you mean? Like, what am I going to do? And he goes, well, I'm going to need you to get it together. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just get it together, And he goes, I'm going to work on some things for you. And I'm going to get some doctors in there to help you. And that man worked an absolute miracle in Treasure Valley, Idaho. And he had doctors calling me left and right. And I had one notebook. I'm always the person that has a spiral notebook because I hate stickies. So I have a spiral notebook at the desk with me. And every time someone would call, my cell phone was just going off like crazy. Doctors were calling me to volunteer time in the practice, but doctors were also calling me to want to talk to me about buying the practice. And that day was just so crazy. I was just moving so many people and trying to talk to doctors about where they could come in. And I was trying to marry my revenue well with my open dental and get the two schedules to sync. And it was a lot to try to put together because people were trying to schedule online and it was closed. And it was loud. It was so much to do. And I was by myself at the front desk. Mind you, when he passed, my whole entire team left that day, except for one hygienist. She stayed. And she was my very dear friend. So at least my hygiene chair didn't have to change. And it was about 2:30 in the morning. I had locked up the doors and I had shut off all the lights except for the one over the front desk. And I was just trying to get the schedules updated with who could come when. And so that tomorrow when I came in, I could call the patients to move to the spots that I had created. And I'll never forget, my son came and knocked on the door. And I looked up like scared, and he knocked on the door and I ran around and unlocked the door and let him in. And he said, Mom, you've got to come home. And I was like, I can't, Parker. I'll try. I'll try to get it done. He sat there with me for probably an hour and I went home at 3:30 in the morning. And the next day I went into the practice and, things started normalizing a little bit. But, one of the doctors who was the current ISDA president, he owned a large DSO in a neighboring town. And he came in to meet with me about perhaps buying the practice for his DSO. He had an associate doctor he could put right in it, kind of thing. And so I got all the numbers ready. I knew it like the back of my hand. I got everything ready for him. And I sat down with him in the lobby. He brought another doctor with him, one of his partners. And I remember I was sitting in the lobby and I handed him the reports, the production reports, the income reports, the static costs of the practice, everything. And he looked at me and a big tear went down his face. And he said, can I touch your knee? And I said, yeah. And he tapped my knee and he said, baby girl, this is not your responsibility.
I was going to say, have you, and you've never sold a practice before. I mean, you just went into like, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah. I said, well, today it is. There's no one else to do it. You know, I had worked with my friend Caleb, who owns Trusted Practice Transitions, and I had done appraisals for him, and I had been involved in sales before, but never really, you know, put it all together or did the sale myself. And so he was like the second person I called to say, get me a doctor, you know, help me with this. And he jumped right on and was working on it with me. But that day hit me really hard because I thought, I don't think a lot of managers would have stayed. They would have been like the rest of the team and they would have just left. But I couldn't do that. It was like my character wouldn't let me do that. And I couldn't let the family down. I had to sell it. The wife needed to get her money. The kids needed to get this chapter of their life done and see their mom okay, you know, and it just was something that had to be done. So it was a miracle. And for the 3 months it took to get the dotted line signed and the practice sold, I had volunteers that came in and just worked for 3 to 5 hours a day. We were open instead of 2 to 3 days a week. We were open 5 days a week because it was for spits here and there, you know, that patients could come in with a doctor that was there. But we sold the practice. But that's where the second part of my education came from, was how the new owner bought the practice. Yeah. He literally talked about how busy he was with his children. He did, in fairness, he had triplets that were seniors at the high school, and he coached every sport they played. So I get it. He was busy. But you don't buy a practice and never check on the team, especially in an environment like this. Instead, every day he had his manager call me and say, hey, we're canceling this subscription. We're going to start you on, here's the username and password. You'll use the same one you're using. So this beautiful practice that I had built with every perfect system, they dismantled the whole thing and made me function at like thing one across town. And I had to get all their systems put in place that I didn't even know how to use some of them, you know. And so I went to go meet with him and said, well, I know you just did the check and I just paid the wife and everything is solid. I'm bringing you the key to the office. And I said, I have a girl that I've been training that I would like to talk with you about hiring to take my place at the office. And he goes, you're leaving? And I said, well, a little bit of advice. I had you checked with me along the way because I just went through something very, very difficult.
I was going to go, you haven't even dealt with the emotion of this really yet. You're in absolute still.
Yeah.
Shock.
Yeah. So I told him.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, had you checked on me and even asked me how I was, I might be making a different decision. But I said, I am not a fixed asset of this practice. And so here's your key, here is your credit card, and I wish you the best. And I left. And I left at that point. He had hired a new girl that was starting on Monday. So I'm like, oh, she's going to start on Monday. We're good, right? She can take it and run. His nephew was going to be the doctor in the practice. And I remember when I left that day, the where our office was, there was a big parking lot. And on the other side of the park, there was this 3-story dental office, like humongous dental office across the parking lot from us. And he called me literally when I was on my drive home, and the owner doctor of that big practice. And he said, Linda, which by the way, the day that I heard everything, he came over and brought us all lunch. And he walked around the corner and stood behind the counter with me and just hugged me. And we just bawled together. He had dated the doctor's daughter. And so he knew her very well. So we just bawled and held each other behind the counter. But he called me that day and he said, Linda, you probably feel like you're at the bottom of your game with a sinking ship like this. But he said, I want to make sure that I'm the first to tell you that you are at the top of your game. And I think the absolute best of you. And I wanted you to know that. And it made me feel so good because I did feel like I was a failure, you know, that here I am, a consultant and a trainer, and my doctor passes away. But it was much more than just the office. It was family too. It was a lot of things that contributed. But I took that lesson and I have just changed my life completely. That's when I wrote my book, Dental Office Rescue. And it's all the systems that need to be in place in a dental office to be successful. And then I wrote my second book the next year, which is called Resilient by Design, which is just my book that talks about my life and all I've been through in my life and why I do what I do today. And my third book that I hope Nancy is going to be in with me is going to also be called Dental Office Rescue, but it's called Dental Office Rescue, the Expert Edition. And it's an anthology book that I'm including experts in the world of dentistry in to be with me in this book to share knowledge, because I am so passionate about saving doctors' lives.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you, so what was really the you've written a couple of books, and that's not an easy thing to do, because I know I've done it myself, and it's a big deal. It's a really, really big deal.
It is
a lot of time, a lot of energy,
a lot of money,
and a lot of after hours and early mornings and stuff. So what really inspired you to write this particular book?
This one that I'm doing right now, the anthology book.
Yeah.
This one is a big deal to me because I thought, I am not that great. Like, I can say a lot of.
Sorry, I think you are. I think you're incredible.
Well, thank you. But who am I to think that I can do it alone, right? Like, we're all better together. And so I talked to my publisher and I told him my idea, and I just said, I am not good by myself. Like, we're better as a team. And I've been so inspired by this podcast because, so I started a podcast. I'm on your podcast right now, but I have a podcast called Dental Office Rescue, which you were just a guest on which I'm so excited about. And I started the podcast because I wanted it initially to be a limited edition to just provide 24 of the most needed resources that a dentist needed. And so I brought the variety of people that I did because I thought that's what they needed to hear. And they could hear this very deep episode about how to run that system in their dental office. And then it just got bigger than I thought it would. And I thought, well, I probably ought to continue this. So I continued it, and now it's bigger. Yeah, it's bigger. And there's been more wonderful people on it like you. And the whole mission is to bring people in front of these dentists to be resources for them. I can't stop this mission. This is just my movement.
Yeah. And your passion about what you do is it's infectious. So what do you hope doctors and dentists and team members really take away from your story?
I hope that they realize that one thing that I mentioned, that there is not one decision that we make in a dental office that doesn't impact someone else. Please just let's think about that, right? Because every day when we go in, it's not about you. It's about your whole team as a unit, and how is your whole team working together to take the best care of these patients. And if our mindset isn't on that, and it's on, oh crap, I know he really wants me to fill the schedule because the schedule's got a hole in it, and I'm mad about this. I can't plug blood from a turnip, right? There's other things that they're thinking about versus the care and compassion that needs to be in the practice. If we start caring for one another, the whole world would change, but definitely your dental practice would change. So that's what I hope people realize, is that there is hope. There's a way to do things. And we didn't even really talk about one thing that I'm so passionate about, and that is AI is surrounding us right now. And there's a way to use AI in a couple of ways in a dental office that will provide you the resource and the free time to be able to work some of the bigger things that are more patient forward. And so that's what I hope to bring to practices.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother episode, because you're right. This is the dynamic of what yesterday is really no more. And so Linda, how can our audience find you?
Oh my goodness, they can go to dentalofficerescue.com. That's where you go, dentalofficerescue.com. There you can click a link and schedule time with me. My phone number's on the website. Everything's there. You can find me LinkedIn from there. You can get me everywhere just by going to dentalofficerescue.com.
So before we close, I just want to honestly thank you for sharing your story, because it really is a story of courage, hard work, and how you really doing this right. You can really help these offices heal. You can unify them. You can, even in the most challenging sets of circumstances, you rallied. And that is the type of office manager that I hope people that are listening, office managers that are listening, those are skills that every doctor is looking for, because it's not just a death. And I mean, that's the extreme, but you want somebody that you can trust, and that goes both ways. Absolutely goes both ways. So
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
One more thing before we close. FinVerified is coming. It is being built on AI to help practices create more structured, compliant, and documented financial conversations. We're working on that right now, because the way we handle money conversations matters, and it matters to the patient, it matters to the practice, and it matters to the future of healthcare. Excited to bring that out. And you can find me at nancykaycoy.com. And if today's conversation resonated with you, my book, Stop Selling Damn It, is available now on Amazon. It's actually hit number 3, and we're moving hopefully to number 1. And thank you again for joining us today, and I'll see you next time on Inside the Business.
Thank you, Nancy.